Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Issues at Hand. Peter Kibazo, WBS TV. A cold day around Kampala, certainly. As we roll out of the mass ID registration process, we get into that other activity. One that I have thought, was it possible to run both of them concurrently? Would it have saved us money to do them alongside each other? Would one have benefited the other better? The National Population and Housing Census. I have thought, and these are my thoughts, that would it have been better to do the census before the national ID registration? Would the census have given us planning figures and projection figures of what we expected with the ID process? The egg and the chicken. This evening with me in the studio is Mr. Ben Mungereza, the ED at Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Welcome.
Good evening, viewers.
Before I start on the census, several times I visit your website, and I need to give you feedback now.
Right.
When I'm looking, I had an argument with several friends about the statistics on the animal population in Uganda and our ability to replenish. And so we went to your website to find out what is the livestock population of Uganda, what is our ability to replenish. And my feedback is you had a dead website that wasn't updating, had old data. When do you visit your website yourself?
No, I visit our website quite regularly, actually. Every day, 2 days, I cross-check to see what is there. But like the information on livestock.
Yes.
That one, the latest information we have is for 2008.
I think it was that old.
Yes, because that is when we did the livestock census. The rest of the data sets would give you an indication, some indication, but not accurate.
I missed the indicative also because I was doing a planning document and we were saying, okay, we should be able to get indicative figures that says Uganda replenishes her livestock by so many animals every year.
Oh, well, we may not have that quick information that you want because, you know, ideally, we should have been doing a livestock census every after maybe 5 or so years, so that we know that the number that is being added on the stock. But we don't. And
the whys?
Well, very many.
Of course, I'm using only livestock now.
Yeah.
But possibly if I went there and I wanted to invest in housing, because this is what was happening. You have someone from Turkey that is planning to set up a massive abattoir in Uganda, and they want to export beef to the Middle East. So they would like to know, how much livestock does Uganda have? How well do they replenish? Does it give me a possibility of doing business in 5 years, 10 years? And
really, the ideal situation would have been conducting what we call annual agricultural surveys, which would provide information on a regular basis. You know, traditionally, there used to be the agricultural system that was providing information. This information would be provided by the agricultural officers from the districts. And remember, that system collapsed. And it's a very big question now as to why that system cannot be revived. And so the only solution to that is conducting annual agricultural surveys that will be giving basic information, regarding the agricultural sector.
But I mean, Mr. Mungereza, before I get to the population and housing census, for me, the value in having Uganda Bureau of Statistics is the ability of Ugandans of different nature to be able to access that data and use it for business planning,
Yes.
any mode of planning, but certainly for me, it's business planning. Don't you feel that in a way then you become an impediment to investment if I cannot, on the click of my fingers, anywhere in the world, check Uganda, I want to know malaria, for example, health status. If I want to invest in a hospital in Uganda, it's callous, but it's the truth. I want to know how many people are hit by malaria here. I want to know how grave TB is. I want to know what is the diabetic situation in Uganda. And therefore, if I'm investing in a hospital that is going to attend to diabetics in Uganda, I have planning figures. I mean, it's the callous truth. Even if I want to invest in coffins, I want to know how many people pass on in Uganda a day.
Sure.
And I'll go to Mr. Munjereza's statistics and say how many Ugandans are going to their
Sure.
Mecca every day.
You go to our website. You know, now you started with the agricultural statistics.
Yes.
Agricultural statistics is a problem in Uganda.
Okay. Are any other statistics any better on your side?
Of course. Because like the information you are talking about to do with households, we conduct household surveys after 2 years. Now, we also now have got another program called the National Panel Survey that follows up a group of households, the same households, every year. So we have information about these households every year. So we can give you annual information. And that information exists on the website. Now, there are also various other surveys that generate information. So like the incidence of malaria, you would get it in a number of our surveys, a number of them. And, you know, although the National Household Survey, which is very regular, and it is every 2 years, and the National Panel Survey, which is every 1 year, there are some other surveys that come in the middle that may provide some of that information. Now, depending upon what you want, if you went there and you looked for one set of information and it was not there, it does not mean that all the information...
No, I mean, I'm saying, for me, I visited for specifically livestock information. And I'm asking you, you're here.
It's a big problem. Agricultural statistics in Uganda is still a problem because we don't have a robust system, which is frequent, for collecting agricultural statistics. So we admit that. And we're trying to see how we can develop it by developing these annual agricultural surveys.
Isn't it odd in a country that is, quote unquote, largely an agricultural country, where we say, because then now I have a problem with the data we use, because the data we use indicates that about 80% or 82% of Ugandans are engaged in agriculture.
That's easy to measure. That's very easy to measure, because in a typical agricultural, in a typical household survey, when you go to a household, it's very easy to get that information. What is basically missing is the production, and you know the regular characteristics of the households in as far as the agricultural sector is concerned. But involvement or non-involvement, that one we get it, because we ask you for your main activity. Even when we are doing the labor force survey, we ask you for the activity you are involved in. So we can give you that information. We can get that information from the household. Now, the issue of agricultural statistics is actually a challenge, not only in Uganda, but in a number of African countries. And the network of African statisticians have observed this as a challenge. And there's a special program for addressing that. And as I said, one of the issues we think is the way forward is conducting annual agricultural surveys that will provide this regular information.
Right, viewers, Mr. Munjereza, we get to the other level of this. Reflection before we get into the National Population and Housing Census. We've had an activity that has been going on. Heavily involved the Ministry of Internal Affairs. I know at a later stage the Electoral Commission will be extracting information from them. Do you feel that there should have been a census before the national ID registration process?
Well,
Or if I ask the other way, do you feel that the population and housing census would have helped inform the concept of ID registration and the others ahead of the registration itself?
first of all, maybe you should also mention that we were part of the planning for the national ID. And as Uganda Bureau of Statistics, we are part of the steering committee for the national ID. I would say yes, if the census had been done before the national ID, then the indicative figures they are using for estimating the number of people that are above 16 years of age would have been more accurate. Because they are depending on projections, which we provided. The population above 16 years of age was provided by us.
UBOS.
And we projected this to be about 18 million. But bear in mind that there are some areas, for example, the northern region, where in 2002 when we did the census, most of the people were in the camps. And project, in order for you to project the current population of the northern region, you need to map these people who are in camps, refugee camps, into their homes, to have effective projections, to have reliable projections. So that means that the projections we have, a projection is a projection. And it's not the same as an actual figure. And maybe it would have been better. Because during ID registration, I've told you that we've been part of the exercise. We noted that in some areas, particularly in the northern region and Karamoja, the projected figures that we had given, they reach there, they find that maybe they are not as accurate as they would have wanted them to be. And therefore, if we had conducted the census before, then we would be having accurate figures. It would have eased the planning process for the ID.
As UBOS, you were involved in the planning level of the ID registration.
Yes.
And you also have been aware that we needed a census, and we'd been planning for one. For the last, I think, 2 years, there's been an indication that it's coming on board.
Yes.
Isn't it actually a planning problem that you let one that should come before the other go first?
No, it's not a matter of letting. You see, the census, first of all, originally was scheduled to take place in 2012.
Yes.
And a statement was made by government that the resources, given the competing priorities, the resources were not sufficient for us to conduct this census and conduct it well. Because Peter, a census is not like a house which you build, reach wall plate, stop there, and after 2 years, you go and complete it. It's also not like shopping in a supermarket where you buy one thing, then you go to another supermarket and you buy another one. You cannot enumerate the northern region and then tomorrow you go back and enumerate the eastern region and so on. When you are going to enumerate, you have got to enumerate everybody at the same time. Now, so we then agreed with government that, look, in order for us to do our census, and we do it well, let's do it at a time when there are sufficient resources to conduct this exercise. And indeed, that's why the census was moved to 2014. Not that...
so it is a resource thing. It is not the intended value for money.
Well, you see, when you talk about value for money, you're also talking about doing a complete census. If you do a census that is not complete, then it's not value for money either. So you must look at it from that angle also. But the fact is, when we provided the projections, they were guiding figures for the national ID. And today you must have heard the Honorable Minister of Internal Affairs mentioning that in Parliament, that we have registered national ID up to about 14
million.
About 14 million. And, you know, with that, we're also saying, okay, that means we are remaining with about 4 million. It's a guiding figure. It's a guiding figure. And by the way, it's always good to have a figure that you are targeting rather than targeting, you know, infinity. Yeah. So it was a very good indicative figure.
I come to the census itself. And viewers, we're going to open the lines a little earlier than usual today. Numbers are going to be displayed on the set. If you have any question for Mr. Ben Mungereza, please put the questions. The National Population and Housing Census, when?
It will start from 28th August and end on 6th September. These are 10 complete days.
I thought is, in population terms, a single short day.
No, there is one reference day. Now, that's the catch point. The night of 27th.
Yes.
Going to the morning of 28th is the census reference night. Everybody, anybody who will have spent that night in the country will be enumerated during the other 10 days I talked about. Now, whether you are a Ugandan or you are not a Ugandan, whether you are a baby or you are an old person. Now, the census, traditionally, it used to be 1 day. But that was just a count. And now this census is not only about a count. It's about getting Peter, getting his environment, how he lives, the house he lives in, the water he uses, the health facilities he uses, the schools the children go to, and so on and so forth. So we take 10 days. And this helps us get a provision for callbacks. We come to you, you are not in your household. So then we come back to you.
You do?
Yes. And if we fail to get you on the first day, second day, at least we'll get you on the 5th day. And if we see that it's coming to the 7th day and you are nowhere, then we tell your neighbors, can you please get information from this person to see to tell us the best time we can come for him.
I'm going to take a break. Viewers, I'm taking a break, and Ben Mungereza and I are still here, and you can put in your questions, you can put your comments. Our numbers are displayed on your set. Turn down the volume of your set as you call into the show. Make your question as brief and concise as possible so that Ben can answer as many as come through. I get to the analysis when we come back. A lot of the data collected is only valuable to us as a country in the level of analysis and planning for the country. How does the census fit in the 2040 plan that Dr. Kisamba Mugerwa and his team have done? Does that 2040 plan reflect what Ben is going to get today? Shouldn't it have been that Ben should have done the census and then Dr. Kisamba Mugerwa and his team rolled out the National Planning Authority's long-term plan? Don't go away.